see you gather before me.
I am on a quest to play the best games of all time. I'm pretty early on this journey. I've only finished Skyrim and Oblivion so far. So naturally, the Witcher series would sit high up on that list. But now I wish I never played it, because now I don't have the option to play it again for the first time. And because now I have this deep sense of emptiness that has lingered for weeks since completing the game. Welcome to the fully blind playthrough of The Witcher 3. Like, why is this the first thing we have to see? Like, this is a crazy first impression. Immediately, questions began to swirl in my head. Where am I? Who am I? Did I earn these scars during the previous 2 games? What even is this world like? Before I could really start making guesses, I was suddenly in control of Geralt. Yes, I thought it was Geralt at first. And when I say I'm confused, I mean it. One of the first things I did was mess around with some menu options, and I came across the glossary. There were 3 people listed there, and I was wholeheartedly convinced that these characters would be playable. Knowing that I would eventually get some answers and naturally grow more familiar with how the game operates, I went downstairs to meet Vesemir. As small as it may seem to those of you who are avid role-playing gamers, picking between dialogue options is completely new to me. What I mean by that is the free-ish will to craft your own tone for the story, possibly even change outcomes. Having just welcomed my now 4-month-old daughter to the world this summer, I opted for the protective fatherly route for the first option. I'm glad I chose this, because even though this girl's young, she could probably kick Geralt's ass by the looks of things. An underrated concept, but a welcomed one, is when video games offer tutorial options and they seamlessly work them into the game. I absolutely hate dedicated tutorial worlds or scenarios, and I skip them purposely even if I desperately need them. Luckily for me, The Witcher 3 presents it in a way that makes it pretty hard to pass on. While working out how to physically attack and maneuver, I have my first complaint about the game. Movement in The Witcher 3 feels slow. It's a bit heavy, and it's almost like there's a hint of input lag. Smoothness is not a word I would use to describe the combat, at least. But the one thing I learned from Skyrim is you get used to those sort of things, and in the end, it is hardly a determining factor in the RPG's overall experience. So I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Just as I was starting to forget that everything I've done so far in these first few minutes is a dream, the main antagonist revealed themselves. I assume this is the main antagonist. You got a big, scary boat, menacing dark armor, and exceptional timing. Cirilla was frozen in ice, and just before she was struck, Geralt jolted awake under a tree in the moonlit night. It's official, my Witcher 3 playthrough has begun. Guys, I'm just trying to grasp what the hell is going on. I've been bombarded with so many different systems, different characters, dreams, monsters, controls. All of it is new to me. What would traditionally be a hindrance to my enjoyment, this information overload was eased by some careful planning by the game developers. I found the bestiary, which gives descriptions of all the monsters we're going to encounter, and there are these pop-up hints, which were super helpful and descriptive, but what proved to be the most enlightening was something a bit unexpected. The extra dialogue options available during conversations. While at the White Orchard Inn, the innkeeper tried her best to help locate Yennefer, but she ultimately had no leads. The game suggested ending the dialogue now. It even had a pop-up saying you can do that. With the optional dialogue, she mentioned how the nation is on the move, describing the ongoing war, helping paint the picture of how desperate of times the Witcher population finds itself in. If I want to truly soak in this game and experience it to the maximum, this will certainly be one of the ways to do that. Knowing what I know now, I'm glad I spent a considerable amount of time in White Orchard trying my best to learn all that I can in this pseudo-tutorial section of the game. First, I took on a contract to kill a ghost, which gave us an opportunity to apply the Witcher senses. As someone who grew up in Maine, one of my favorite things was to follow deer tracks in the snow-covered woods as a kid, hoping I'd find a pack of them. Maybe it's just a guy thing, but having the ability to track and follow clues has always been a secret desire. I also really appreciated how thorough the inspection of the Griffin's corpse was. In fact, I was blown away at the dialogue so far. Not only is it extensive, it's engaging, and the voice acting is exceptional. Listening to Geralt break down every tiny detail of the Griffin's dismembered body really solidified my trust for the game. It doesn't matter what I interact with or how insufficient it may be to the main story, everyone and everything I encounter is worth investigating.
His lower back is compressed, but not from the fight. This is a prolonged injury from sitting at a chair that wasn't comfortable.
Wait, that was a strange description. A griffin sitting in a chair? That'd be ridiculous. And yet, here we are at the sponsored portion of the video. This is Flexispot and their chair, the C7 Max. Flexispot tested this chair with drowners and rock trolls, making sure it's comfortable for all body types. The headrest can be tilted to the ideal angle and help keep your head comfy. The entire backrest height can be adjusted, meaning you can find the right spine support. The lumbar section here at the bottom automatically adjusts, so you get even more spine support by the sacrum. Something often ignored is seat depth, but the C7 Max even allows for that. The cushion itself is super soft, and my favorite thing is how adjustable the armrests are. You can raise the height level and rotate them 360 degrees, so you can find the perfect position for gaming or for work. And when you thought it couldn't do more, it also reclines. And yes, you're seeing that right, it has a footrest that you can tuck underneath when you're not using it. Flexispot is participating with Black Friday, so you can use code C730 to get $30 off. You can feel secure with a 30-day return policy and a 10-year warranty, so click the link in the description to give your butt something nice this Black Friday. Now, back to The Witcher. Ooh, a place of power. I know some of you thought that I would miss this, didn't you? With now an unspent ability point, I was introduced to yet another new system, the talent trees. Instead of seeing how things go and maybe taking my time, I chose to go straight into the green tree for this playthrough. I don't know what's overpowered. My guess is the combat one, but I wanted to go with something less vanilla, so we're gonna make my bombs and potions strong. I don't think I've used any of those yet. Again, I'm playing completely blind, so if I accidentally just chose the most overpowered talents like I did in Skyrim with the sneak build, just consider me a gaming genius, I guess. In literature, there's a method of storytelling called in medias res, which means to be dropped into the middle of things, beginning the story in the midst of chaos. Being as this is the third Witcher, I figured this would be the case. I'll admit that I prefer more linear storytelling, where the timeline starts from the beginning and the story develops step by step. I find in the former scenario, I start asking way too many questions, ultimately sabotaging the natural unfolding of the story. For example, after a dangerous brawl in the White Orchard Inn, Geralt and Vesemir step out and are confronted by some Nilfgaardians who are accompanied by none other than Yennefer. Having just witnessed an innocent farmer receive 15 lashes for delivering rotten goods to the Nilfgaards, they are clearly a brutal empire who are not righteous in their war plans. If Yennefer is an ally, why is she with them? Also, why the hell was it so easy to find Yennefer? The first cutscene had Geralt chasing after her, and the beginning part of the game was all about following her tracks. I was expecting to have to use my Witcher senses or cut down a few men and maybe find her in deep trouble. I know I've missed the entirety of the story so far up until this point, but all of this to say, I am in an awkward stage having missed 2/3 of the lore. I'd hoped the game would assist new players like me, but it actually did the opposite. Once I reached Vizima, General Voorhees, he started asking questions about past events. I assume this part was to help refresh memories for the previous two games, but it only served to distance me farther from the story, making me feel dumb for not knowing what was going on. There were too many name drops and scenarios I have never experienced. If knowledge of past events is required to understand the story in this game, I might be doomed. As my concern for jumping into an established world without knowing the history increased, my conversation with Emperor Emir gave me hope. He mentioned Ciri, the girl from the dream earlier, was alive. She was in danger, being pursued by the Wild Hunt. This is the carrot on the stick I needed to convince me that the story is worth investing in. I still don't even know if the dream was real or not, but the Emperor tasked me with locating her. I don't know much about Ciri, but this sounds like the classic princess who ran away and needs to be rescued, and I can get on board with that. Mario and Peach have been doing it for years. Yennefer and I were able to chat once I was done with Emir, where she'd explain more about Ciri's possible whereabouts. Instead instead of more valuable information about Ciri, the conversation shifted over to their relationship with one another. There was mention of amnesia and a girl named Triss. Apparently, I lost my memory and forgot Yennefer existed. It is interesting how much this game has highlighted Geralt's relationship with Yennefer so far. Most relationships in these types of games are secondary storylines that prove no real purpose, but it feels like in The Witcher, it's much more important. Oddly, I feel Yennefer is not to be trusted. Maybe she will betray me down the line. Regardless, I finally had something in the story that hooked me in. Where is Ciri? With the story set in motion, I glanced at the world map for the first time. Damn, she is thick. The quest list says I need to visit Velen, Novigrad, and Skellige in search of Ciri. I know The Witcher is an open world game, but I was still shocked at the vastness of it. Just how big is this game? I wasn't overwhelmed, but I was stunned. Like literally, I was unable to decide what to do first. Obviously, there's a main quest to follow, but why rush into anything? Almost poetically, as big as the world of The Witcher 3 is, it also feels small. There are little towns like this one, Blackbow. In Blackbow, you have a few homes, a few people, and a few problems. While I was here, I ran into a guy named Nealon, a hunter who has lost his wife in the woods. I asked the other village people if they knew anything, and they all said she was dead. There's a wild pack of wolves that inhabit those woods. Accepting my duty as a witcher, I ventured into the forest and found the wolves, defeated them, and thought the quest was about over, until Margaret appeared. She was the sister of Hannah, Nealon's missing wife. She tried to bribe me to stop my investigation, stating it would only make matters worse if I found out the truth. She offered double the original rate to end my search, and being short on coin, I accepted. No, I'm just kidding. Margaret is obviously hiding something, and I wanted to know what. Well, we quickly find out that Nealon is a werewolf, which I learned from reading a letter in an abandoned shack not too far away. Below the shack is where Nealon hid to wait out full moons. I'm only playing on the second hardest difficulty, but killing this werewolf was not easy. I spent close to an hour here. I died endlessly, but it did function as a sort of combat trial for me, and it helped me improve my timing and dodges. It did make me second guess my bomb build. Then again, I don't even really know how to make a bomb. Eventually, I powered through, but before I took him out, Margaret showed up.
No! Stop!
Turns out, Margaret is into hairy men and is in love with Nealon. Worse than that, Margaret is responsible for her sister's death, having led her into the woods knowing Nealon in werewolf form would not resist an easy meal. Yeah, he didn't really like that, and I had to make the decision to either let Nealon kill Margaret or take the beast out myself. As much as I wanted to let him avenge his wife, I decided against it. I wonder if he would have actually killed her if I let him. This game really gives you freedom to write your own story. Geralt is obviously a ruthless monster killer with no fears, yet he seems more of a humanitarian than his rough, toneless voice would lead you to believe. So far, my Geralt is not driven by money. He's altruistic and overall seems to be a bit more kind-hearted than his Witcher status may lead others to believe. It is crazy to think that I am already setting the tone of my playthrough on one of the very first quests. This is a good sign for things to come. Maybe I'm leading Geralt down too soft of a path, but somehow it feels right to me. A few hours in, and it's clear the Witcher world is very hostile. There's monsters roaming both the seas and skies. War rages through a never-ending conquest of power-hungry rulers, and it's full of death and grief. I think anyone at this point of their playthrough would capture that feeling, and in case you somehow missed it, how about stepping on some entrails and a decapitated lower leg? These sounds did not have to be added into the game, but props to the developers for making things as realistic as possible. But as gruesome and raw as this is, it's actually quite beautiful. Well, you know, not the blood exactly, but other parts are literally pieces of art. After some exploring, I swam up to a fisherman on a small dock, and behind him stood a large city. Now that is art. Not only is this place amazing, but it really does feel and sound like an actual city full of people. I heard the townsmen sawing some wood. I heard the clink of armor and some distasteful words as I passed the city guards. And I heard people holding actual scripted conversations on the side of the street.
Will we ever meet Whitford?
I don't want to bash Skyrim too much, but so far, this game kind of blows it out of the water, at least in terms of environment and immersion. And it only came out 4 years after Skyrim. I haven't experienced many open world RPGs, but clearly this one is on a different level. I spent a good bit of time here, just taking in the sights, and in the upper right corner of my screen, I saw a symbol of a pair of scissors. You know, I gotta put a stamp on my playthrough and change my look. So everyone, this is how my Geralt will look for the remainder of the video. A soul patch and the Elven Rebel cut gives a slightly dignified look, more focused. It really lets that scar pop. I know the playthrough is just getting started and there's so much to talk about and experience, but I gotta keep it here in Oxenfurt for just a little longer. I promise we'll actually start progressing soon. During the Oxenfurt drunk contract, I learned that a vampire had been attacking citizens late at night, but this vampire would only target drunk people. Geralt thought the best course of action was to get himself sloshed and roam the streets himself to lure the vampire out. Certainly, we could have found some other drunk and we could hide somewhere and wait for the vampire to show up, but no. I forgot to record, so I'm gonna use someone else's footage here, but seeing Geralt stumble around and sing songs really helped add some character depth.
Was not demanding, gave it up to any man standing, early in the
It's quests like these that help you fall in love with the game and the characters. I sobered up real quick once I encountered the vampire.
Come out and fight, bitch.
I thought I'd be fighting a guy dressed like Dracula, but instead I had to fight a Catacan. I guess it's just like a higher being of vampires. I might be a bit of a baby, but being forced to take this thing on in a small hut just outside the main part of the city had me legitimately scared. It didn't help that one mistake meant certain death, but I did manage to take him down even being severely underleveled. Did you guys notice what happened? I was so hyped about finding Ciri that I completely forgot about her and did like 10 side quests and 3 contracts. That is totally an open world RPG thing. All right, let's focus up and try to find some clues on where Ciri is. At the time, I didn't know I was heading towards Novigrad, but getting to the main city was not as simple as walking straight in. I got stuck at the border post, which was manned by the Redanian army. They guarded the entrance to the territory surrounding Novigrad, and I needed a pass to get through. Luckily, I was given one from a guy whose monster contract I just fulfilled. But before I head into Novigrad, I want to talk about this bridge. While walking this bridge, I felt The Witcher was different from other games. This bridge, although small, helped build an understanding of the world's current state. Though I'm still super lost when it comes to the war and who is who, this bridge painted a clear picture. I passed by children and women, old sickly men and innocent families standing in line, hoping to find refuge past the gate. It may be insignificant, but it was the world building I needed. I felt the desperation and hopelessness of the war. It makes the world feel so much more alive. A lot of games wouldn't go to these lengths to fill such an unremarkable location with this much detail. It was another way the game earned credibility. I think I'm starting to see why this game is so highly acclaimed. Yes, this game is massive, but when you zoom in on one section of it, even zooming into a single bridge, you'll notice that there's no wasted space. It's a nice lesson for any game developers out there that areas like this are just as important as your main city. As one of the lucky ones who has a pass through the gate, I can see now why so many are in line waiting to get through to Novigrad. Notice how I stop when entering the city walls, to pause and take in the skyline, to become a part of the shuffling chaos. My hands froze so I could take it all in. I thought Oxenfurt was big. It might be too early to say this, but The Witcher 3 is an amazing game, easily topping Skyrim and Oblivion. I feel I can make this judgment call this early because the game is already set up to succeed. The dialogue, the glossary and bestiary, the side quests, the environment and the music. I'm in love. And although Skyrim's main quest is nothing in comparison to the many side quests it offers, I feel The Witcher will probably be different. The idea of tracking down a single person, Ciri, keeps the story organized. It's simple in nature, yet I know it'll be so much more complex than that. And even if the main quest disappoints, the side quests and explorable areas of the game are already so fun and engaging, it wouldn't even matter. I am feeling rather dumb for not giving this game a chance earlier on. I hate that I've been so prejudiced towards role-playing games, but I'm also kind of glad because it means I get to experience this right now during an important part of my life. I said before that I had my first kid a few months back, and so obviously time has been something that has become a bit scarce. I love my daughter in my life, but when it comes to gaming, I haven't been able to play as often. I wouldn't have it any other way, but when I do play, it feels rewarding to play a game that respects my time, giving me entertainment at every step, while granting me the freedom to play at my own pace and my own way. There's no sense of urgency, something other games have pushed on me in the past in some form or another. Life is fast-paced enough. A game like this should help you feel the opposite. Sorry, that was probably a bit of a tangent there, but that's what the first sight of Novigrad can do to a man. At this point, I'm still kind of just wandering around the game without any direction. It's hard to leave Novigrad once you enter it, and I found another quest that would occupy me for a while. I won't go into all the details of it, but essentially I convinced this guy here, Ibeer, to abandon his current work as a dumpling maker and go back to work as a master blacksmith. The quest involves a bit of negotiating, killing, hiring bodyguards, sabotaging, and more killing. It was fun, but the thing I appreciated the most about it was the writing. As a completely new visitor of Novigrad, the quest helped familiarize myself with the complexities of this place. There's people here who have too much power, and as wonderful as it is for some, it's also contentious and unfriendly. This was the perfect first quest to do in Novigrad, and I'm sure there are better weapons out there, but the steel sword I got as a reward from this quest scales with my level. I'm probably gonna use it for a long time. Oh, and I'm totally over the sluggishness of combat and retract my complaint from earlier. The movement fits this style of game, and I'm completely used to it by now. In fact, my bomb build is starting to do some serious damage. A quick side note, shout out to the tutorial page for existing. I've referenced it often in my playthrough, and knowing it's there if I ever get confused on some of the fundamentals of the game feels great. For example, earlier I wasn't sure which monsters needed to be fought with a silver or steel sword, but the tutorial mentioned the opponent's vitality bar, which indicate which sword you should use. The silver health bar needing silver and red being steel. It's funny, I said earlier how I hate tutorials, yet here I am reading one in-game like some kind of nerd. The tutorial is there if you need it, but you aren't forced in going through it. With my new sword, I felt now was an appropriate time to progress in the main quest. I learned of a few leads from someone who has also been tracking Ciri, and the first stop was to visit the Baron. Before you are allowed into the Baron's territory, you either have to pay an old man or find a secondary way through. Now, my Geralt may not be overly motivated by money, but he's still not about to give it away for free. I searched and searched, and right before I was about to give up and donate some coin to the elderly, I saw some wood attached to a tall brick wall that surrounded the main area. I thought I could climb up that way, and I was right. Kind of. Bet you didn't know you could do this. Well, I probably should not have done this because things started to break. The NPCs didn't really interact with me, and I was afraid I was out of sequence with the game. I was able to examine clues on the ground, and although Geralt totally knew what was up with those clues, he wouldn't tell me. Thinking I just soft-locked myself, I happened across the Baron, which seemed to fix everything. He told us Ciri had been through here, and for the first time, I got to play as her. This was exciting for me because up until this point, I only knew Ciri as a young girl possessing exceptional combat skills. I knew so little, I even thought she was a witcher. That of course is incorrect, but I did learn that Ciri is kind, thoughtful, and a bit like Geralt. A little girl wandering alone in the woods? That takes precedent over any wild thing Ciri might be dealing with, and she asks what the little girl is doing, clearly showing empathy for the child.
My father brought me. Told me to follow the trail of treats and eat my fill. He said he would wait.
While Ciri looks to be close to death, Geralt is busy helping return a goat named Princess to a crazy old man. This is when I found out that Geralt doesn't treat animals quite like he treats people.
Bear, run, you stupid piece of shit.
The Peller, now reunited with his goat, held a strange ritual which gave us valuable information about the Baron's missing wife and daughter. The Baron requested we find them if we wanted to learn more about Ciri. I returned to the Baron, who has shown to be a fascinating character, and asked about this unborn child the Peller uncovered. The Baron's story was a tragic one. He's a raging drunk, a careless husband, and furiously unjust. As flawed as he was, his love for his children was real, and without knowing it, he had caused his unborn child to change into a botchling.
Into fucking what?
This part of the story was insane. The Baron and Geralt headed down to the grave to visit the unborn, buried child. Problem is, the child was missing. I didn't really know what to expect. The bestiary showed a cute silhouette of what a botchling might look like, but instead I was greeted by the most hideous monstrosity. The way the Baron shuffled behind Geralt, disgusted and confused was pretty close to how I felt at the time. There was an option to kill it on the spot, but I chose to let it live so we could potentially make it a lubberkin, or whatever Geralt said earlier. The way the Baron held his child was kind of funny to me, and by the end of our long walk back to the fortress, I had grown to think that the botchling was oddly cute. You can tell it just wants to play, even if that means eating your face off. This quest continued on for a while, and I got so caught up in it that I forgot to record it all. This is where I just let myself get lost in all of it. I did random side quests, I did some main quests, I explored. I also found out about the all option on the map, which populated it with tons of tiny little question marks. My eyes lit up. Seeing all of the tiny landmarks and mini events you can do while roaming the map made it clear that this game is truly massive. You can spend a long time here trying to unlock all of it. The hours passed by. I think I accidentally stayed up until 3 a.m. one night, and now that I'm a 30-year-old dad, I thought those days were long gone. I keep comparing The Witcher to Skyrim, mostly because I have so little RPG experience, but one thing I like better in The Witcher is the variety of enemies. Each monster in The Witcher is unique, moving at different speeds, attacking with different styles, and requiring different weaponry and blade oils. I still can't express in words how vast the game feels, and for someone oblivious to the series, it feels as if it is endless. The game remains fresh at all points. I do have one complaint. During the quest where you travel with Kira into some cave, I got a bit lost on what was going on. There's some sort of mage who wanted to meet with Kira, but also knew of Ciri's whereabouts. Honestly, I'm just too puzzled to even explain what was going on. This was all necessary to progress the story and continue the Baron part of the quest line, so this is the first time I went on autopilot. It sucks because I know it was significant and I'm sure I missed something, but it's done now and I get to head back to Crookback Bog in search of the Baron's wife. As I headed towards the bog, the quest suggested reading a book called The Ladies of the Wood. Oh my god, that little girl that Ciri had seen in the woods? She was there because her parents sent her to look for the Trail of Treats. It turns out you can send a child down this trail to what I assume is their death, and as a sacrifice, the parents will have their wish granted by these so-called Ladies of the Woods. In desperate times like the Witcher world is in right now, the people who occupy it are forced to become raw in their desires, their emotions, and their actions. There's no hiding behind a facade when life and death is at stake. So if that's the case, you can introduce side characters by the use of the show don't tell philosophy. The guys at CD Projekt Red clearly know this and use it to their advantage, at least from what I've seen so far. When we meet Vesemir, he's sleeping in a chair with books laid out in front of him. Instantly, you recognize Vesemir is unbothered by the chaotic world, probably quite wise, and literally does things by the book. When we meet Kira, she's inside some sort of realm, surrounded by bunnies and bathing in a small tower. She's whimsical, free-spirited, and there's clearly some sort of sexual tension between her and Geralt. And now, back in Crookback Bog, we meet Johnny, who is a shy but curious little creature. We learn he's a godling, and you feel at ease knowing he won't harm you. And once you find out he might have some info about Ciri, you're equally interested in finding out why he lost his voice. I have been introduced to so many different characters in my short time on this game, yet I feel all of them have their own personality and importance to the story. Then, of course, there's the monsters. The monsters have no true restrictions on what they can look like because, well, they're monsters. It's like the perfect recipe for a rich fantasy world. But of all the monsters I've encountered so far, the Ladies of the Woods take the cake for the most hideous of them all. As if their grotesque, mangled figures weren't awful enough, they are grossly over-sexual. I gagged when one of the witches stroked the legs she had sticking out of her dismembered limbs pouch while teasing Geralt. Ugh. That made me even more sad to find out that Anna was bound to these witches, performing as their slave, which only happened because she was driven mad by the Baron's actions. As if coping with the Witcher world wasn't hard enough, some have to endure far worse than a simple war. Geralt's tough love and willingness to call the Baron out on his mistakes helped facilitate a beautiful transformation since the first time we met the Baron. He had finally come to the realization that he alone caused his and his family's suffering. Overall, the story of the Baron and his family is tragic, but it made the Baron's words sit heavy as he wished Geralt luck on finding Ciri.
Farewell. I hope you find your daughter. And prove a good father to her.
With now a bigger chunk of the quest to find Ciri solved, the main story became that much more alluring. We know now she was not in Velen, and next up was to check Novigrad. I think I played 8 hours straight, but before I logged off, I got to watch my first sunset in Novigrad. The orange-red evening sky poured through the cobblestone buildings while the city buzzed from the night crew making their way into the streets. It was literally the golden hour of my playthrough. What will I encounter next? I felt a great sense of wonderment. What will come next, however, will become the greatest chain of quests and gaming experience I've ever had. I'm sure this isn't the first time most people meet Triss, but for me it was. Triss is hiding in a place called the Putrid Grove, a type of sanctuary for all of the weirdos of Novigrad. Triss, being a sorceress, qualifies as a weirdo. Novigrad is supposed to be a free city, but the current status could not be further from that. One thing that has bothered me in my playthrough is how the main story quests work. It started with the Baron, where in order to elicit information about Ciri, you have to first help him with a task. There always seems to be something less important to do first. It could be annoying to have to do 3 steps just to take 1 step forward in finding Ciri. It bothered me for a little while, but now I welcome it. It's the Witcher 3's way of keeping you in a certain area for a while, letting the story kind of simmer for a bit. It could have totally backfired if the stories or characters weren't interesting, but luckily that's not the case. I think of it as a tree. The trunk is finding Ciri, but on the way to the top of the tree, branches appear. You can follow them and sit on them for a while. If you want, you can keep extending on that same branch to the smaller branches. The Witcher is not only about Ciri, it's a complete story with various characters and experiences that sprout out from the main objective. This probably seems pretty common in any story, especially in role-playing games, but The Witcher does it seamlessly. I feel like everything in the game belongs. There's no forcing of characters into the story, no moment where immersion can break. It just works. So Triss is now one of the many branches of this game. It seems like you don't have to do more quests with Triss, but I kind of want to. But first, I took Triss's advice and went to see the Oniromancer, who was occupied with a godling. Godlings are becoming my favorite non-human creature in the game. They're playful and harmless and are one of the only few purely good creatures left in the Witcher world. Actually, I was curious about the 2 different dialogue options you get with Rudolf the Jonkir. My first choice was obviously to lie and say the place was occupied by a demon and he should consider his purchase wasted. But I went back to the last save to see what would happen if I was an asshole instead and told him about the godling. This time it didn't matter which one you actually selected. I know most of the dialogue options do make a difference, but I was a bit sad to learn that some of them probably do nothing, even if you think they should. Speaking of dialogue options, I'm glad that they added extra options during the chat with the Oniromancer. In order for the fancy dream lady's visions to work, she needed strong memories about Ciri from Geralt. The cool thing is, once you give her 1 memory, she asks if Geralt would like to share more. I took this opportunity to listen to every memory.
In Rivia, the second war with Nilfgaard had just ended. There was still tension in the air. For gods know what reason, race riots erupted in the town. I tried to do something, but couldn't stop a riled crowd. A boy with a pitchfork. He ran it right through my gut. Yennefer lay dying as well. Ciri had us carried onto a boat. We sailed to a place where apple trees bloom eternal.
I wish so badly to reunite them. It's weird to grow admiration for a character you've never even really met. That is the power of storytelling, and right now I am hooked. If there was a moment where I'd consider it impossible to quit before finishing the game, it would be this one.
These scars long have yearned for your tender caress, to bind our fortunes
There's something attractive and endearing about a fantasy world. Obviously, us gamers are no strangers to these make-believe places. But hearing Priscilla's angelically smooth voice echo inside of the Kingfisher Inn is the pinnacle of fantasy. In a world full of terrible monsters and even more terrible men, this small pub in the heart of Novigrad acts as a place to forget about the horrors that lay outside the warm, candlelit walls. It's scenes and environments like this that make me almost jealous of the people who get to live inside of this game. I mean, I would never actually wish to live in such a hostile world and time, but you can't deny there is a certain charm to the idea of it. I think that's a sign of a well-made fantasy world when there is that strange longing to be a part of it. I have a few on my list, including Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Harry Potter universe. I would definitely argue now that the Witcher experience is far richer and deep than those two worlds. I hope there are other games like The Witcher out there that I haven't played yet, but this feeling, this cozy, adventurous, fuzzy feeling I have playing The Witcher 3 right now gives me nothing but joy. If you're somehow watching this video and you haven't played the game yet, stop watching immediately and go experience this for yourself. I would have loved to stay here longer, but since we're living as Geralt, a Witcher, we can't spend it all day in the Kingfisher Inn. I gotta get back to business, starting with meeting Dijkstra and his pet troll named Bart. Dijkstra is someone we meet while looking for Whoreson Jr. Whoreson Jr. is someone we're looking for because he might know where Dandelion is. And Dandelion is our latest lead for finding Ciri. The Witcher does a great job of sending you down the rabbit hole, and that hole went one step deeper when in order to find Whoreson Jr., I have to go find Caleb Mengi. To do that, I had to pretend to sell out Triss, and when it came down to it, I couldn't do it, and I messed something up because I had to kill every last witch hunter, including Caleb Mengi. It feels like the game is testing us a little. We're supposed to be with Yennefer, but Triss is here making that difficult. So I decided to help her out with another favor, this time accompanying her to a party where she needed to meet with the Vegelbud family. I know Triss is doing this to elicit a donation from the Vegelbuds so she can forward her plan to escape Novigrad with the other mages, but this quest felt a bit foolish. Even more so that the quest is called A Matter of Life and Death. Regardless, it was fun to be at the party, especially the part where Triss gets drunk and eventually her and Geralt kiss at the fountain. Man, this game does a great job at making you feel anxiety about the time decisions you get to make sometimes. The game is so intricate that it feels possible that Yennefer will now find out about this kiss, and I probably just ruined my chances with her. Well, Triss does seem to bring out a softer side of Geralt without forcing it out, and we're clearly in too deep at this point. I wrapped up things at the party and got back to finding Whoreson Jr., but was yet again stopped in my tracks. This game is unbelievably beautiful. Even crazier that everything you see is a real place, somewhere you can go and discover. I was going to question if I was the only one who does this, stop and appreciate the surroundings, but I know I can't be alone in taking the scenic route. Eventually, I was able to get back on track and locate Whoreson Jr.'s place in Oxenfurt. I was in shock at how disturbing his residence was. I'm not even sure I can show everything I saw here on YouTube. Like, it was genuinely fucked up. I feel Geralt did what any of us would have done if we met this sick bastard in real life.
What the sandwich fuck is this?
Geralt isn't one who projects his anger or give a threat. He normally calmly and quietly shows his strength, but this line, it gave me shivers.
I feel like one more lie'd be the last bitter drop in a chalice full of sorrow. And then I'd do something I would later regret.
Whoreson Jr., bloody and scarred, finally told us what he knew about Ciri and Dandelion. But as the quest to find Ciri progresses, I can't help but feel like she's only getting farther away. It's one step forward, two steps back. I'm beginning to question if Ciri is even still alive or even real. Like, this somehow feels like a bad dream, and we'll get to the end and everything that has occurred will have been for nothing. Oh, and you're probably wondering why I haven't shown much footage of me playing Gwent. Well, I did try it out in the very beginning of the game in White Orchard Inn, but I didn't know how to play it, and I got a bit discouraged from that. I've basically avoided every opportunity to play since then. I know that's gonna upset some of you, but I think I've decided to do another playthrough and go in as Geralt the Gwent Master of Rivia, and focus solely on the card game. Besides, I have more important things to tend to, like getting Triss and the other mages out of Novigrad. I was kind of sad during this part. Novigrad wouldn't be the same without Triss and the other sorceresses. It's bittersweet to have to say goodbye. And it's clear to me now that Geralt and Triss are a good couple, so I did everything I could to let her know that. I didn't really expect the option to express love to Triss, and curse the developers for making this a time-based decision, but I had to make a choice.
I love you.
Miss Marigold, we're casting off.
Damn, even for a Witcher, it is still brutal to not hear I love you back. As much of an asshole Dijkstra is, he was a real bro for trying to help Geralt feel better by sharing his own story of rejection.
Philippa, we've so much in common, and so on. Know what she said?
Pinstripes hadn't slimmed you down enough?
No. She said, Geralt, turn around.
Not in the mood for jokes.
No, I'm serious.
To my surprise,
around.
Triss had come back. Hilariously, the developers threw in one final dialogue option where you could mess things up. Good thing women are changeable? That's a crazy line. I was too scared to test what would happen, so I just said, thank you. I have a theory that Geralt, amongst all the other Witcher abilities, has one additional ability. Irresistibility. I can't tell you the amount of times Geralt has been openly flirted with, and I can tell you it's not his personality or choice of words that swoon these women. Well, dropping the L-bomb was a pretty large show of faith, so Triss took us to the top of a lighthouse, and after romancing about the future, Triss and Geralt got after it. I think they make a good couple. Triss is kind and thoughtful. Geralt is rough and independent. Though on the contrary, you could say those characteristics could be swapped and it still would be true. I thought it was funny that they included the two sailors on a boat, idling not too far from the lighthouse where Geralt and Triss are making love.
Look, they're signaling us. It's a message.
In typical Dijkstra fashion, he was creepily waiting below the lighthouse. Who knew how long he was there? Dijkstra shared his ridiculous plan to assassinate Radovid, the Redanian king. I have to admit that Dijkstra is a master of persuasion. Geralt is openly opposed to the idea. Witchers don't normally concern themselves in politics, yet Dijkstra persevered.
It's grown hot, my friend, and it grows hotter still. Pyres burn in every city. For mages great and small, your female friends included. For non-humans, for witchers soon. Is that the North you espouse? The North you're prepared to live in?
Geralt was undecided, but me personally, I was totally down. I feel Novigrad and the North in general would be better off without Radovid. I'm not a fan of the Nilfgaards either, but maybe with Radovid dead, someone more morally sound could defend the North. With tensions rising in Novigrad, I wanted to continue the search for Ciri before things got too complicated. We have yet to find many leads since being here, but finding Dudu seems to be the only way forward at this point. I normally find quests like The Play to be rather boring and unnecessary, and it was. This game probably has thousands of hours of content, so if a few minutes here and there don't tickle my fancy, that's no big deal. I know the play's purpose was the hidden message behind it to let Dudu know Geralt was looking for him, but maybe it could have been done in some other way. I won't judge if this was somehow your favorite part of the game. It did work. Dudu revealed himself and was able to help fill in the missing details on Dandelion's whereabouts. I didn't know it at the time, but the search for Ciri in Novigrad was coming to a close. After a number of quests, we find Dandelion and help free him, where he ultimately tells Geralt that his search for Ciri will continue in Skellige. I kind of expected to find Ciri in Novigrad, being that it's so large. I know you start in Velen, but what if you went to Skellige second instead of Novigrad? Would Ciri be in Novigrad instead if you did that? Maybe you can't do them out of order, but Ciri is still out there. I'm almost nervous. I am many more hours into the game now, and as time goes by without finding Ciri, it feels like this story will end with some sort of tragedy. Ciri will either be dead, a figment of Geralt's imagination, or something else that basically makes this whole search meaningless. I mean, I guess it wouldn't make for a bad ending. There's more to this game than just finding Ciri. Maybe the journey is the friends we made along the way. It's a meme, but I could see this whole Ciri thing being an elaborate scheme fabricated by the Wild Hunt, where she's been long gone, and the Wild Hunt seeks only to tie up loose ends with Geralt and Yennefer. Regardless of what the future will hold, I couldn't wait and decided to leave Novigrad for now and begin the search for Ciri on Skellige. I liked how different it felt to be here compared to the mainland. This place is natural, earthly and surely has a lot of hidden secrets. The thief who woke Geralt up had a heavy Irish accent, I think, who had his pet wolf and boat in the background. I like this vibe. I like it so much that the first thing I did was turn the music up. The environment on Skellige is so captivating that I didn't even realize I was trotting on Roach instead of galloping. I hopped off to grab some indigenous herbs here on Skellige, and I happened across one of my favorite sights and moments in the game thus far. Hearing the music swell as the sun illuminated the evergreen environment took my breath away. How did they make this look so real? I didn't think I would find a place prettier than Novigrad. Wow, was I wrong. I think this is one of those moments that will forever seal itself in my mind. There is something magical about Celtic and Nordic cultures. They always seem to deliver when it comes to fantasy landscapes and music. As if the surroundings didn't scream Nordic roots enough, the first thing we attended on Skellige was a Viking funeral, and none other than Yennefer. It's only been a few hours of gameplay since our intimate moment with Triss, so this was a bit awkward. I would be impressed if the game coded different lines from Yennefer during the conversation because of the choices you made with Triss.
Stop reading my mind.
Something to hide?
Don't like secrets?
No.
You still can't convince me that Yennefer is not secretly a villain. I feel she's got that dark energy about her that feels a bit too ominous, at least to not have partaken in some kind of evil stuff at some point. Maybe the previous 2 games or books already have shown that, and my gut feeling is correct. Well, there is a good chance I would find out if Yennefer has any malicious intent, since it seems we'll be questing with her for a bit. First stop was Hinderfjall, where we met some of the locals who told the story about Morkvarg, a man and a menace to the island. He pillaged, stole, and murdered, but his infamous crime was attacking Freya's garden, a sacred place on Skellige. One cool thing about learning another language is recognizing borrowed words that English uses. When I heard the name Morkvarg, I knew we would be dealing with a werewolf. My wife is Swedish, so I've been studying for a while now, and Mork, although not the right spelling, means dark, and Varg, or pronounced Vari in Swedish, means wolf. I could be wrong about this, but they said he was turned into some kind of monster, so it only makes sense. Yep, there it is, called it. There's the werewolf. I don't know what it was about the voice actor for this Morkvarg guy, but I'm glad they chose this person because I found his lines amusing.
Shank! Not again! Not again!
The werewolf was bound to the gardens, cursed to an immortal life, forever unsatiated. His pleading to be saved was convincing enough, and I found a way to lift the curse. I gotta say, questing with Yennefer is nothing like Triss. She's constantly nagging and making snarky remarks. I wonder if she's treating Geralt like this because she knows what happened with Triss. Well, one thing I said earlier is coming true. No sorceress who willingly chooses necromancy is of good people. The body we found under the garden could have some info on Ciri, and Yennefer felt evil magic was the solution. I guess it was worthwhile because we got to play as Ciri again, living out the final moments of the corpse. I didn't find this part of the story to be that impactful. Ciri was in Skellige, and the wild hunt appeared, chasing her down. Kind of a boring moment of the story. We already know she's being hunted. As the end of the quest unfolded, however, Ciri was about to escape the wild hunt and met up with that mage friend of hers. Strangely, it seemed that he wasn't protecting her. It was brief, but Ciri was obviously pleading to go back to save the boy who just saved her, yet the mage casted a stunning spell of some kind, and he threw the now unconscious Ciri on a small paddle boat. Whoever is helping Ciri is clearly not to be fully trusted. Also, the fact that Yennefer is a sorceress and the person actively helping Ciri is a mage, it has me questioning if those two are working together. The two of them clearly push the moral limits because Yennefer's act of necromancy in the sacred garden required a great deal of magical power and a big sacrifice.
What happened to the garden?
It died. Like I said, the spell, it requires a great deal of energy.
You knew it would end like this, didn't you? Didn't consider it worth mentioning?
No.
I'm just speculating here, but what if Yennefer is jealous of Triss, jealous of how much Ciri loves Geralt, and wishes to eliminate them both in the name of love? Would Yennefer go to those lengths to have Geralt alter herself? I think that would make for a dumb ending to the story, but you never know. Before we left the garden, she said we needed to talk.
Geralt, I know we should talk. But not here, all right?
All
I don't
men
wish to
cower
stay.
at those words. And given that Yennefer can pull off a bit of necromancy, Geralt may be in some serious trouble. Yennefer can read minds. There's no way she is not aware of Triss. So I began the side quest, The Last Wish. Yennefer explains that there is a djinn, some sort of magical creature thing that is somewhere on Skellige. She claims that if she can tame the djinn, she will gain incredible power. Of course she needs incredible power for her incredibly evil plans. I probably sound like a maniac, but not knowing anything about Yennefer, other than what we've seen so far in this third game, is throwing me for a loop. I'm sure she's acting totally normal, but to me, something feels off. We were looking for something to help us locate the djinn. Eventually, I found a seal, which was the key. Yennefer then teleports us to a mountaintop, and I heard the music. The same music that always plays when Geralt is about to have a romantic interaction. I got a bit confused, but the dialogue cleared things up.
So that's it. This is about my last wish?
You asked that djinn to bind us together forever. I want to ask this one to take that wish back.
Why would you want to do that?
To see what it's like without it. To see if we'll still matter to one another. Or if we'll be like two strangers.
Well, I didn't see that coming. I instantly feel dumb for believing that Yennefer was evil. I mean, she definitely doesn't hold herself to the same morals that Geralt does, but this pretty much clears up any ulterior motive. We found the djinn and had to defeat it. The fight mechanics were cool, but this is where I wish I played on a harder difficulty. It's just that in reality, this djinn would be an epic fight, possibly exhausting Geralt of all of his tricks to defeat, but I only needed to take a few swings. Once weakened, Yennefer commanded it to lift a spell that bound Geralt and herself. Eagerly, I waited to see how the two of them felt about one another. We sat down, and after a bit of time, Yennefer said,
Nothing's changed.
"Oh, wow. I thought we'd see a different result, but here I am, staring at two important dialogue options. What am I supposed to do? This is the first time Yennefer seems like she truly likes Geralt, and this quest helped me see her in a slightly different light than before. But I already told Triss I love her, and there's no way I could betray her like that."
I love you, Yen.
What? She was being sweet. Listen, I've seen stranger things in The Witcher than loving two women at the same time. I mean, just look at this romantic setting. Any of you would have done the same thing. You never know what day will be your last in this world, so it's best to keep both doors open. Did anyone else get as confused as I did at this point of the main story? Uma, the ugliest man alive, is the key to finding Ciri? Did I skip over something? One moment we see Ciri unwillingly being put on a boat with the now presumed evil mage dude, and then in the same cutscene but sometime later, the ugly thing shows itself to Skjall. I swear there is some missing context, and now Geralt and Yennefer say it could even be Ciri? It's my first playthrough, so I missed something. Well, since confusion breeds curiosity, I completed a few contracts on Skellige, then sailed back to the mainland to meet the Baron. As much as I didn't want to interrupt his playing in the manure in the stables, I picked up Uma and headed to Vizima to meet with the Emperor to share with him the great news. That I guess this is a clue to Ciri.
Well, this man is the key to finding her.
He goes on to explain the situation, which I was hoping would be an opportunity to maybe fill in some plot gaps, but it didn't. Things will make more sense if I keep advancing the story, I thought. So next up was Kaer Morhen. You know, I totally forgot other Witchers exist, and they were already at Kaer Morhen helping Yen. Their names were Lambert and Eskel. Lambert is sarcastic and unfiltered, and he made me feel worse about my choice that I just made on the mountain with Yen.
Irritating, you mean?
I thought you liked people with bitchy streaks.
So long as they're women.
Then you found the best of them.
He is a little sour towards Yen, but then again, he's kind of sour towards everything. When they reached the destination, the Circle of Elements, they continued their conversation. I thought it was interesting to hear how Lambert once used the Axii sign.
Yeah, useful sign, Axii. A couple of road robbers stopped me. One pointed a crossbow at me, and the other started rummaging through my satchel. I made the man with the crossbow shoot his friend, then hang himself.
Didn't have to kill them.
But I could, so I did. 2 whoresons less in the world. Big deal.
Tell me, you always been such a cynical bastard?
No,
I think Witchers
that
like
was
Lambert are the
adorable.
reason why so much of the population detests them. I think this indirectly shows that Geralt is not like the other Witchers. He clearly acts in a different, more respectable manner. The conversation continues, with Lambert expressing that he had no choice in becoming a Witcher and wished he had a different fate.
One day our prayers were almost answered. Dad lost his way coming home from the tavern, walked smack into a nest of neckers. But some Witcher saved him. Know what he wanted in return? Give me the first thing you see when you get home. My life. For the life of that prick? I say fuck that kind of destiny.
This got me thinking about a lot of different things. Did Geralt do this with Ciri? She was training at Kaer Morhen in the beginning, yet she's not actually Geralt's daughter. And also, do Witchers have a choice in becoming a Witcher? I also remember some dialogue somewhere in the beginning of my playthrough where someone said Witchers take children. Is that true then too? This is where I know I would have been better off starting from the first game, or at least reading the books or something, but I guess I have something to do after I finish The Witcher 3. I finished up with Lambert, and next we were to meet Eskel, the other Witcher at Kaer Morhen who needed help. The first interaction was him and Geralt nerding it out over the steps to hunting a forktail.
As for forktails, bait them thusly. Pound a stake in the soil, bind a goat to it, then hide ye in near to shrubbery post haste.
Eskel and Geralt have much more respect for one another, which makes sense given Eskel is far more reserved and traditional than Lambert. I thought it was funny that even with Eskel's more laid-back, non-confrontational personality, he still had to show his obvious distaste towards Yen.
I'm a simple Witcher wolf. Don't fight dragons, don't fraternize with kings, and don't sleep with sorceresses. Unlike some.
I get it. Since Yennefer arrived at Kaer Morhen, she's done nothing but boss everyone around and shows no respect to the Witchers in their home. Not even to Geralt. But then again, she's never been nice to Geralt. I get that she's stressed, but Triss would not act this way. All of these little tasks that I've done with Eskel and Lambert were to help Yennefer do some sort of magical projection in order to talk to a sage who could help understand the curse that was placed on Uma. I did not fully understand this part, but Vesemir also had a plan to lift the curse. He left with Uma to some place in the forest and left the four of us alone, waiting. Out of all the decisions I have made so far in my playthrough, none will be as important as the one I'm about to make. With Daddy Vesemir gone for the night with Uma, the kids are here to do whatever the hell they want. We could do some spring cleaning, or we could spend the entire night drinking. Well, Yennefer wasn't down to do either. She said we had to talk.
All right, what did I do this time?
No, nothing. I just wanted to take you aside, without cluing the others into what we're up to.
And what are we up to?
Sneaking upstairs to make love.
Wow.
You know, I told Yennefer I love her, so
Exactly
why
those
not?
words.
Except the boys don't like Yennefer, and I already have Triss. I'm kind of regretting saying I love you to Yen earlier. Saying no to Yennefer now was not easy, but I did what I had to do to ensure that the boys were happy, while also being loyal to Triss.
Suddenly I have an immense desire to drink.
You know, I made the right decision. Now the boys can have some fun. Once the three of them were completely sloshed, they had no filter remaining and let Geralt know that Yen is not the one for him.
Will you ever lay off Yen?
Yeah, soon as I trust her.
You brave a fire for her, whereas she plays you like a cheap fiddle. Way it's always been.
Listen to you two goddamn relationship experts.
I love that the game gave us this moment, a bit of a vacation from constantly dealing with the heaviness of the endless search for Ciri. It was also a perfect opportunity to get to learn more about the two other Witchers, but the time passed quickly. Vesemir returned early in the morning, failing to lift the curse, so we had no choice but to do it Yennefer's way. Her way was to subject Uma to the trial of the grasses, the mutation process in making a Witcher. I guess it's so brutal that many don't even survive this. Seeing Uma suffer was painful to watch, but I guess in the end it was successful. Uma, the ugliest man alive, is none other than Avallac'h. So it wasn't Ciri, but instead an elf sage who Geralt seems to know. He mentions Ciri is on the Isle of Mists. He also says the hunt wants her to open some sort of gate. So I guess he's a good guy wanting to keep Ciri from the hunt, but then Geralt says he's not a good guy.
Just keep an eye on him. He's not a friend.
I guess we'll find out, but I will have to side with Geralt on this one. You don't cast a spell on Ciri and make her go unconscious without some form of evil intentions. So with Uma's identity discovered, the new plan is to go to the Isle of Mists and find Ciri, bring her back, and I love Vesemir for step 2 of the new plan.
Time we, the hunted, became the hunters. Geralt will find Ciri and bring her here, and the hunt will follow. They'll expect to catch us by surprise, and they'll be sorely disappointed.
This whole thing is about to break open. Geralt will leave to recruit some allies and bring them to Kaer Morhen, where they'll launch a surprise attack on the Wild Hunt. This is reminding me of the end of Game of Thrones, where everyone is to come together to fight the White Walkers, who even share the same icy, evil, otherworldly vibe the Wild Hunt has. But I started to feel sick, almost. The story is showing signs of the end.
The boys and I'll consider how we should greet our uninvited guests.
All right. Time I was on my way.
Good luck, Wolf, and give Cirilla our love.
Come back quickly, Geralt.
All of Geralt's past friends and acquaintances know how important Ciri is to Geralt, and the quest I'm on now is to gather as many of those friends as possible and ask them to risk their lives to help protect Ciri. The story is diverging from its normal play loop. Geralt, being a witcher who acts alone, hunts alone, travels and exists alone, is now dependent on others. It is because of this expectant battle at Kaer Morhen that I feel the main story is nearing its close. I'm having a difficult time coping with that reality. The urge to continue the main story is strong, but at the same time, I know that if I hurry myself and focus only on the main quest line, I might miss out on some other aspects of the game. The problem is, I'm someone who obsesses easily. It could be a new hobby, a new friend, a new game, or food. Right now, I'm obsessed with the story. I need to know what happens next, and I don't feel like waiting. So why would I deny myself that desire? Yes, The Witcher is a video game, but right now it feels like a movie, and I don't want to pause it. But you want to know something great about The Witcher? The game understands the quarrel some have about rushing through the main story, and they provide a solution. While I can ask Kira to join me at Kaer Morhen, she denies the offer, only because she has some matters to take care of first, and she needs our help. At first, I was like 10% annoyed that this was built into the game, but the side quests they make you do are so good that it's really more of a favor from the developer's end. The task that Kira needed help with was to investigate a haunted tower on a small island not too far from Kira. The tower was haunted by a girl who had a tragic death. I guess it was an accident as a result from a mage's wild science experiments. Something you guys may not have noticed, though, during this quest, was a little detail in the house of Annabelle's boyfriend. He was still grieving Annabelle's death, and while Geralt explained what he found out about the girl, I noticed a noose in the background. It's just crazy how much thought went into this game. Every single tiny detail was considered. I feel this is probably one of those games where every time you play through it, you're likely to come across something new, or come to a realization you hadn't considered before. Well, for helping Kira, her next quest was not expected at all. I mentioned a while back that there was some sort of sexual chemistry here, and she invited Geralt to a nice dinner in the middle of the forest. And it happened again. The music. The music that signals Geralt is about to do something he might regret. Listen guys, we're about to have a giant battle at Kaer Morhen where it's presumed people will die. I've already said I love you to 2 sorceresses. Why not a 3rd? It's a good thing that witchers are sterile because he'd have a lot more people to chase down than just Ciri. With Kira satisfied, she had no problem heading to Kaer Morhen for the battle. Next up on the recruiting list was Zoltan. I found it amusing that while Geralt is preparing to fight the monsters of the Wild Hunt, Zoltan is all caught up in Gwent, asking us to help him find 3 cards that would complete his deck. This one wasn't too difficult, and now Zoltan is on board at Kaer Morhen. But while I was in Novigrad, I remembered a side quest that I really wanted to do before I continued my search for Ciri: to kill Radovid. There were probably 4 or 5 quests that led up to the end of this killing Radovid thing, but one in particular was making me die with laughter. At one point, we have to find a certain Redanian informant who was captured by some rock trolls. This Redanian dude is hilarious, and while he was under arrest from the trolls, he took the opportunity to teach them how to curse. Not magical cursing, like word cursing, swearing. The trolls were just spewing out the most ridiculous phrases, and I could barely focus on fighting. Shortly after, I unintentionally got sidetracked again from the Radovid assassination questline and went to find the next person I needed to recruit to Kaer Morhen. Roach was more than willing, and after him was an unexpected ally, Emperor Amir. An army could certainly turn the tide of the battle, but I did something wrong and failed to get any support from the Nilfgaardians. Whatever, the Nilfgaardians aren't really my favorite group of people anyway, so I headed back to Skellige to recruit who I needed from there. I'm glad I'm back at Skellige. I gotta spend more time here. Like I had to do with Kira, the people I needed to recruit on Skellige needed help first before they would accompany me to Kaer Morhen. With the death of the previous king, Skellige is still in the election process for its next successor. To keep things brief on an already lengthy video, naming the next king is not necessarily a hereditary right. There's about 5 to 6 people who wish to rule Skellige, 2 from Clan on Crate, Hjalmar and Ceres, who both up and left to go and prove their worth with some wild expedition. Hjalmar wished to prove his worth to the throne by seeking to kill the ice giant who took over Undvik. A quick note here, if you remember that I'm learning Swedish, is that Undvik comes from the word undvika, which means to avoid. That's a perfect name for this island because, well, all I found here were dead bodies. I halfway expected Hjalmar to be dead, but we found him and helped him kill the ice giant. I absolutely love this quest, but I love the next quest even more. Next up was to help Ceres. Her crazy expedition involved one of the Jarls of Skellige and trying to lift a curse that tortured him. It was all around a well-written quest, but the ending was insane. We find out that the Jarl isn't cursed, but haunted by a ghost called a Heim. A Heim is not easy to get rid of. Only 2 successful methods are known. Ceres and I decide to try the safer of the 2, to trick the Heim. These evil beings latch onto people who carry immense guilt. So to trick the Heim, it would need to leave the Jarl and attach itself to someone who had even greater guilt. Ceres had a plan to trick it and tells us to put the baby into the oven, like a real brick oven. What? I panicked. Against my instincts, I decided to put the baby in the oven, which is a dialogue choice I never thought I would read.
Aki!
The Witcher committed no crime. You'll find neither despair nor guilt here, only shock and relief. You've been tricked. You must go.
Cinema. Absolute cinema. I love this game. With Hjalmar and Ceres back in Kaer Trolde, the next quest was to announce the new king or queen. Though we assisted Croc on Crate's kids, there are more than those 2 who seek to become king. Skellige political's landscape is complicated, and with complication comes corruption. Instead of a fair and just coronation of a new ruler, someone sabotaged the event. After an insane massacre and a few deaths, deciding who would become king of Skellige would have to wait. An investigation must undergo on why the bears were there in the first place, and we are given the choice to help Hjalmar or Ceres. It took a few hours to complete all of this, but I am so grateful that the main quest introduced me to the secondary quest line. I'm also impressed at how much free will you're given during this part of the game. It seems like I could have sided with Hjalmar, and maybe if I did, he would be king of Skellige instead of his sister. The writers could have taken the easy way out and could have forced an outcome through a cheap death or some other weak plotline. I will keep giving props to the writers and developers. They outdid themselves. I left Skellige to seek out the final person, and with Ermion now recruited for the Wild Hunt, I was ready. Ready to find Ciri. Ready to see if Ciri is even alive, if she's real, to learn more about why she is being hunted. I don't know what to expect on the Isle of Mists, but I released the white spirit thing into the air, which Avalok said would guide me to her. It led me to the mysterious island, one that can normally only be found by chance. Expecting to be alone, there were instead a bunch of dwarves who had recently landed on the Isle of Mists. Most of them found safety in a small hut in the middle of the isle, but a few of them were lost elsewhere. 2 out of the 3 dwarfs did not make it, but I did manage to save one of them. Bringing him back to his dwarf friends was the only way for them to trust me, and after a bit of chatting, I told them I was looking for Ciri, but the dwarfs already found her.
But I need to find someone first.
An ashen-haired lass?
Yes.
Oh, dreadful sorry.
What do you mean?
She's cold. Spirits left her.
Must have passed shortly before we found her.
Let's wait by
After
the boat.
all this searching, you're telling me that Ciri is dead. I had a feeling the ending of the story would not end well, but I thought maybe she'd die or be captured at Kaer Morhen with her loved ones present. Anxious to know if Ciri is even in there and if she's alive, Geralt stood for a long time, facing the door, waiting. I felt the same wave of hopelessness as Geralt. Is she really dead? He slowly pushed the door open, and in the hollow, shadowy inside of the hut laid Ciri, lifeless. This frame right here got me. Geralt, who so desperately followed Ciri's tracks, always one step behind, finally reached her, but it was too late. He remained in the doorway, knowing that moving closer would reveal the truth. He found the courage to take one step forward, and then another. He slowly walked over to where Ciri laid on a bed, cold and stiff. He sat down next to her and put his hand on her shoulder. He paused a moment, then rolled her from her side and stuttered back in disbelief. The dwarfs were right. The world of The Witcher is not kind, yet I still believe that there would be a good ending with Ciri. How could this happen? With how interactive the story is, was there an outcome where I get to the Isle of Mists and Ciri is still alive? Did I take too long? Did I miss something important? I nearly broke down when Geralt took Ciri up into his arms, rocking her in his embrace as the morning had begun taking over his emotions. How can a video game make you feel all these things? But suddenly, the little light that guided us to the Isle of Mists appeared again. Geralt didn't see it, but I knew instantly what it meant. I think tears rolled down my face when I saw Geralt standing like he did just moments before, but this time as a memory from the past. They're finally together. I ran the entire gambit of emotions in the span of, I think, 1 minute. The camera work, the music, and the moment were so well done. Geralt and Ciri were reunited. I made sure to go through every single extra dialogue option that I could. I wasn't gonna miss one word. They spent time catching up, and I lingered in this moment for as long as I could. I learned more about why Eredin, the leader of the Wild Hunt, was hunting Ciri. I learned how Avallac'h and Ciri met and why she trusts him. It was just a great conversation that summarized the order of events of what happened to Ciri, helping fill in a few gaps that I otherwise would have had to guess on. It was also pleasant to talk to Ciri and see how she interacted with Geralt. She laughed at his bad jokes. She proudly told him about her time with the Baron and how she hunted a boar. It was beautiful, really. This small hut on a mysterious island became another haven in the world, just like the Kingfisher Inn when Priscilla played her song. These are the precious moments you seek in a story like this, but in the back of my head, I had a bad feeling. The Witcher, this world, it's unfair. It all feels too good to be true, and I had a form of anxiety when thinking about the upcoming fight at Kaer Morhen. Often in these types of stories, you trade a moment of happiness with a moment of sadness. So if this is a happy moment, what is about to become of the sad moment? Someone was going to die. Maybe many people. I would bet my life on it. The question is, who?
Thank you for coming. The Wild Hunt will be here soon. They're coming for Ciri. Want to take her? We'll stop them.
Here it is, the moment the story has been building up to. A great battle between good and evil at a place that the Witchers and Ciri call home. The battle preparations were complete. Everyone was in their place, ready to risk their life to protect Ciri. I only have one wish. I hope this ends well. Our job alongside Lambert was to take out the portals in the woods surrounding Kaer Morhen. This initial part of the fight wasn't necessarily that exciting, but all good battles come in stages. This first stage was us on the offensive. I will say, Geralt and Lambert's moment where the Wild Hunt had them surrounded was pretty cool. They showed their sword skills and battled together like they had been partners for many years. The battle continued, this time at the castle where the Wild Hunt had already begun infiltrating. I was a bit confused that a wooden gate stopped some of the Wild Hunt. Like, these guys can teleport freeze the air that even the ground becomes ice. They could probably do many things to get through without a problem. Yet, here they are swinging away. Suddenly, we were in stage 2 of a great battle, the fallback stage. Our heroes are overwhelmed by the attack, needing to regroup and defend from within the castle walls. I haven't mentioned combat for a while, but I love it. My bombs do massive damage, and fighting with a sword feels natural. I no longer feel clumsy. It is a bit obvious that I need to replay on Death March. This should be more intense. The fight continued on. I fought as Ciri, I fought as Geralt, I saved Eskel and Triss. I didn't know what would happen next, but it felt like we were losing, and that feeling proved right. Yen had become exhausted, dropping the protective barrier over Kaer Morhen, and seconds later, the front gate blasted open with a rush of numbing, freezing air that froze Geralt in place. My heart sank. Is Geralt going to die? In front of everyone? It won't even be a worthy death. He had no chance to defend himself, no last words. But they walked right past him. I find it unrealistic that the Wild Hunt is somewhat merciful. They are higher beings from a whole different plane of existence, yet they don't desire to kill for the sake of killing. I will forever wonder why they let Geralt live, but that did not stop them from marching forward, eventually reaching Ciri. I thought it was over. We just got Ciri back a few hours ago, and now she's surely going to die. But Vesemir had other thoughts. I didn't expect him to still be able to fight as well as he did, but despite his efforts, the Wild Hunt ended his last stand. He was captured, and the Wild Hunt tactfully understood that Ciri would trade her life for Vesemir's, so they had indirectly captured her as well. I'm a pretty bad guesser, but I thought that the only way Ciri gets out alive now is through either Avallac'h or Geralt sacrificing themselves. We saw Geralt get frozen, and we haven't seen him since, so that was my guess, but I was wrong again.
You always were an unruly child. I adored that about you.
Vesemir knew Ciri would not leave him, and he stabbed a knife into the gut of the Wild Hunt general, knowing he'd enrage his captor. In a state of grief, Ciri unlocked a new power. Her screech disoriented the Wild Hunt, then became so overwhelming it even killed the lesser ones. Eredin and his generals barely escaped, but despite the vanishing of the Wild Hunt, Ciri continued to screech. I don't know much about the Elder Blood and how this lineage of powers have developed, but it's clear Ciri is the most powerful being in at least 2 worlds. Thank God she turned out to be a decent person, because this power in the wrong hands would have been grounds for a totally different story. The howling continued, and before she destroyed the entirety of Kaer Morhen, Avallac'h stopped her. We can breathe. I don't think anything is more disturbing than seeing Geralt's eyebrows release from their normal sullen position to a raised, concerned position. He doesn't show emotion like that, but Vesemir was like a father to him and the other Witchers of Kaer Morhen. I didn't share in the suffering that Geralt and Ciri did at this moment. Not because my 2 favorite characters were still alive, but because I didn't know Vesemir that well. He was around for a short time in the beginning, and even more briefly before the battle. His funeral was held shortly after, and what I thought was the ending of The Witcher turned out to be a major turning point. So far, we have been the hunted, constantly on the run, and now, Ciri was no longer willing to hide. As grim as Vesemir's death was, I was kind of excited. Excited that there was still more, and the story will continue. I have to give credit to my older brother about this next point. We had a conversation about video games, and there's something unique about them. When you go to the movies, you generally have a sense of when the film is nearly over. You probably know the runtime and have a feeling of how much time has passed. When you read a book, you can glance ahead and see how many pages are left. In a game, especially one as open as The Witcher, you don't really have any idea besides the context of what's happening. There is no timer or countdown. So video games have the ability to fool you into thinking you're at the end. This big battle at Kaer Morhen was a perfect setup for an ending to a story. Yet with Ciri surviving, we have been rewarded with more time, more story. I feel Ciri can succeed in avenging Vesemir and ending the Wild Hunt from pursuing her for good, especially since it's clear that she has powers that are capable of far greater destruction destruction than the Wild Hunt possesses. So where do we go from here? If the Wild Hunt is to be attacked, there's surely a lot of groundwork to put in. Ciri needs to master her powers, Triss and Yen need to find the other sorceresses and ask for their help, and we need to find a way to approach the Wild Hunt on our terms. With so much to plan for, Geralt and Ciri began their work with a snowball fight. The heaviness of the battle persisted, and Ciri and Geralt only just got reunited. So this playful moment was much needed. I feel like too many video games focus purely on action. Action, action, action. Something grand and epic has to be happening because otherwise people might get bored. But that's not true at all. The best stories are the ones that couple action with quiet, chaos with peace. They build up to a single moment. Not only is The Witcher 3 a carefully detailed video game with a beautiful environment and seamless gaming experience, it's also a story. A wonderful, deep, rich story that could be placed alongside some of the best literature or movies of all time and have a rightful place. And I'm not even done yet. One of the first things on the checklist was to pay a visit to the Emperor. He is, after all, Ciri's father, and I think seeing what he wants from Ciri is only fair. When we arrived, the Emperor was pleased with Geralt and offered the rest of the reward for finding Ciri. I haven't needed money so far in my playthrough, and like I already said, my Geralt is not greedy. Above all else, my Geralt is kind and decent, doubly so to Ciri. She's far more important than any amount of money or bribe. Maybe this choice was easy because I thought of my own daughter, but the look on Ciri's face and how she held my hand when I turned down the money confirmed the right decision was made. The second thing on the checklist was quite a large one. Ciri wanted to kill one of the Wild Hunt's generals, and more specifically, the one who broke Vesemir's neck, Imlerith. This quest was not my favorite for some reason. It felt forced. Apparently Imlerith, an important war general from another planet, will conveniently be in town on top of a mountain during some sort of Sabbath, alone. The setup was unrealistic, which broke a bit of the immersion. I did enjoy a bit of leveling up of difficulty during these fights, however. I had Ciri take down the Crones, and Geralt took down Imlerith. The story had its moments during this, but overall, it felt like there were no consequences with the mission. I knew nothing bad could happen, because the big battle at Kaer Morhen just ended. Before I continued the main quest, I remembered that I hadn't finished killing Radovid. I was going to explain in length why I decided to assassinate Radovid, but I feel the conversation on his boat pretty much sums it up.
A rumor went around that I'd generously reward any who bring information about Isleheart. There's no shortage of the greedy and the stupid. So a queue quickly formed at the gangway to the ship. The first aboard was a hunter, brought me a dead owl with no eyes. He thought I'd believe it, shower him with gold. I had him blinded, then thrown overboard with a stone tied round his neck.
So yeah, Radovid has some Joffrey vibes about him, so deciding to kill him was no problem. Geralt, being a Witcher, who said he wants to avoid politics, does not want to take Radovid out, but he ended up in the middle of it all, like literally. But in the end, Philippa was the one to kill Radovid. I can kind of see why Geralt falls in love with all these sorceresses. They're kind of badass, and I think their magic is stored somewhere in their upper chest area because... yeah. When I thought the quest was over, Dijkstra came in and dropped the biggest bomb. He wishes to rule the North and break off any peace treaty with the Nilfgaards. It was a huge backstabbing, starting with ordering his men to kill Roach. I did not expect Dijkstra to hop off the stage and engage with us, but he too would die. 2 major characters were killed off in a matter of minutes. I love it. My reward for all of this, all of the fried meat and grilled chicken sandwiches the corpses had. It's hard to come across good food in this game. And that was that. Radovid was assassinated, Dijkstra was taken out, and now Redania is on its own to figure out how to deal with the Nilfgaards. It's still absurd to me that you're given all of these major plot options, all resulting in a totally different reality. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but being someone who has never played a game with such free will, it blew my mind. It had the effect of investing you further into the story because, to some degree, you were writing it. With that quick diversion finished, I headed back to the main quest. This time I needed to accompany Avallac'h to his world at An-El. Getting to An-El was not easy. Just when I thought The Witcher could not get any cooler, I was wrong. The quest was an intergalactic adventure going from portal to portal, world to world. I remember thinking to myself, this is just a flex from the game developers, because it's clear their artists and programmers are capable of making any landscape look beautiful and intriguing. Later on, after I had traveled through 5 or 6 different worlds, Avallac'h and Geralt sat and talked about the current world they were in. He mentioned the White Frost, the eventual apocalypse that awaits every world. Inescapable, it's the never-ending freezing of a planet where life can no longer persevere. All of this conversation and the following events helped explain the Wild Hunt's desire for Ciri, who Avallac'h is, and Eredin's rise to power. I wish we could have had several hours of gameplay or stories about the Anel and the Elvish world. I would gladly opt into a bunch of side content involving traveling back and forth between our worlds, playing out events that lead to the Wild Hunt's involvement with Ciri. Maybe this already happened in the last 2 games, I don't know. If it did, consider those games purchased immediately. Avallac'h and Geralt return to the main world, and with help from the Oniromancer, the other elven sage dude who serves Eredin now sees the truth and tells us about the Sunstone. This stone will be the key to bringing Eredin back to the continent. Suspicions began to rise, as elves are notorious for trickery and consider themselves superior beings to humans. I feel like that small moment next to the paddle boat on Skellige during Ciri's quest is pretty telling for me. I bought into the suspicions, and I am taking an official stand against Avallac'h. I don't trust him, and I feel there's a definite chance he's the real villain. You know, I was thinking about something the other day. I've mentioned before that I enjoy the Harry Potter series, as most do. Do you know how long the runtime is on all the movies combined? It's 19 hours and 39 minutes. That means someone could theoretically experience the entirety of the Harry Potter universe in one day. Of course, the books take much longer and have more content than the movies, but think about The Witcher. So far, I'm like 60 or something hours into my playthrough. That's 3 times more than Harry Potter, 3 times longer with Geralt, and I still have 2 DLCs along with hundreds of hours of explorable areas still unseen. The last Harry Potter movie came out July 15th, 2011. 14 years later, and that world has never left me, and in fact has become a tradition to watch around Christmas time with my family. I have a feeling this game, The Witcher, and what I'm experiencing right now, it won't leave me for possibly my entire life. That is powerful. And in case none of that is true, how about a threesome with Yen and Triss? Yeah, it's gonna be pretty difficult to forget a thing like that. Geralt the Irresistible is added again.
We've always loved each other. You're in love with us.
There's no point in fighting it. We must enjoy what we have.
So, we've prepared something special.
Come by the Kingfisher this evening.
Bring wine. Lots of wine.
This game is kind of crazy. If Geralt has one weakness, it's sorceresses. I wanted to do some side quests first. No, I'm just playing. There's nobody in the world who could not do this quest right away. I'm already at the Kingfisher Inn with the wine.
What about me? Don't I get any?
You
just got exactly what you deserve.
No way, I should have seen this coming. It feels a little unfair though, because I told Yen I love her, but we've never really had much of a relationship. I denied her multiple times. Damn. Lesson learned, I guess. After Geralt's most embarrassing moment of his life, I made my way to Skellige with Triss, Yen, Avallac'h, Ciri, and some of the other sorceresses to end this thing once and for all. This time, however, I'm about 95% certain that Ciri is not gonna make it through the finale. She barely escaped death at Kaer Morhen, has already avenged Vesemir, and Avallac'h is still a part of the story who I feel is not to be trusted. I am still in the belief that this game will not end happily. As a sort of stalling tactic to prolong these final moments of the main story, I went around Skellige just for fun. I had no objectives other than to see what happens and enjoy the surprises I might come across. Well, I did come across something, a cave inside of a house. It was pretty secluded, so maybe I found something many of you haven't even seen. It wasn't very large, but in the middle of it was a bear statue. After exploring, it turns out that there was nothing to loot or fight. I even tried to light all the braziers surrounding the bear, but that did nothing. Maybe this place was from a quest or simply serves no purpose. On my way out though, something happened. The map broke. I scaled the polygonal edge of the mountain I was on, trying my best not to fall, but then I did. I fell for a long time, and finally a message appeared on my screen. You've reached the world's edge. None but devils play past here. Turn back. Alright, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but seconds later, my map opened and I was teleported to the top of a mountain and began sliding down it. This is how I unlocked that achievement, by the way, on Steam. But even cooler than that was the place of power I serendipitously encountered when I reached the bottom. Now that's the type of thing that happens when you aimlessly wander in this game. At this point, playing The Witcher has become a routine of mine. Every night I put my daughter to bed around 8 p.m. and once she's comfortable, I load up the game and settle into my chair, ready to hang with Geralt. Time doesn't exist when I'm playing. That concept has become more and more rare as life goes on. It is hard to ignore the clock when so many things need to get done, but the 4 hours I get between 8 p.m. and midnight, they disappear. It's been a while since I found myself completely lost in a video game. Time sped by as I saw the legendary white whale, and even though it took me 45 minutes to find the pearl divers, that went by quickly too. The boat ride to Philippa to locate the sunstone was beautiful, and it also flew by. I don't mean to hurry, I just played. This game has a way of placing you in a sort of flow state. It may seem like I'm over-exaggerating, but try to remember your first time playing this game. It has that effect. You know, I would be interested to read about a negative experience someone had with The Witcher, if that's even possible. The plan to bring the Wild Hunt to Skellige was nearly complete, and the heaviness of the unknown awaited in the distance. Geralt and Ciri took every opportunity they could to have fun together and simply enjoy the present moment. Soon, everything will change. Avallac'h and Ciri stood on a small dock on the fitting isle of Unvik and casted the spell on the sunstone that would signal Eredin in the Wild Hunt. Within seconds, they appeared, and before I could take a breath, it seemed our final attack was underway. Time to find out how this whole thing ends. First, I took control of Ciri so I could fight Caranthir. Then Geralt had his turn with him. I wish we got to learn a bit more about the Wild Hunt's generals and the backstory so that when I finished off Caranthir, his death felt more rewarding. But right before Caranthir took his last breath, he teleported Geralt to the bottom of the ocean. The swim up to the top was yet another small moment that made a big impact on the overall feel and weight of the situation we're in. Boats floated in the water, still on their way to the bottom. Fiery explosions colored the surface of the water, giving off an orange hue that contrasted the blue glaciers. The muffled underwater sounds provided just enough silence so you had room to wonder what lies above. Who has survived? Who has died? Will we even survive? But just a bit further along, we find Croc on Crate on the brink of death, who is definitely in the top 5 for the most badass deaths.
Any last words?
Shut your trap. Fight.
I expected to angrily attack Eredin, but I forgot Geralt doesn't act so rashly. Eredin welcomes Geralt and adds that he has something to tell us. His attacks were telegraphed, and he moved slowly, at least until he teleported. I bet I could even beat Eredin on Death March. I got in a groove and slowly whittled him down. As Eredin lay bloodied and weak, he told us something I somewhat saw coming, yet I did not expect to hear from the king of the Wild Hunt.
Avallac'h has tricked us both. He set us against each other, and he's made off with Ciri.
I don't think I know enough about the Witcher world to recognize just how significant the reality of the situation is. I know from the very intro sequence that the conjunction of the spheres was the event that originally let the monsters into the world. I thought that that was a one-time deal, but we're here again and the conjunction is upon us once more. I'm also pissed at Avallac'h. Like, after all we've been through, he's going to betray Ciri. My guess is we'll reach the tower at the last second, only to see Ciri die or to be taken to a different world or something. All I knew is I had to hurry, and the game did a great job at garnering that feeling of urgency. Fireballs came raining down from the sky as the conjunction of spheres swirled above. Nilfgaard said prayers while Yennefer shouted at us to hurry. Multiple Cyclops appeared from the portal as men grouped together to try to take them down. Tree limbs and earthly objects normally weighed down by gravity were floating just above our head. It was chaos. But in the chaos, I found a moment to just sit and appreciate the sight. This is the end of the game. As destructive and monumentous as it was, I wanted to soak it in. I glanced up and noticed an entire new world peering through the clouds where the conjunction of spheres opened. It was cool to see another planet where normally the moon would be. With the sights and sounds sufficiently soaked in, I continued forward. I arrived at the tower to hear Avallac'h calmly state that Geralt should not be here. I was ready to attack Avallac'h, but before the argument reached that point, Ciri appeared.
Can't. Not after all that's happened.
Will you believe me? Avallac'h speaks the truth. I asked him to help me open the tower, because I aim to enter it.
Avallac'h didn't betray her? This was Ciri's plan? She was to go into the tower through the conjunction of spheres. I didn't understand. I was actually mad that I didn't understand. Like, did I not pay enough attention? Why does she need to do this? The game knew some would be confused and had Ciri help clear things up.
The prophecies are true. I have seen worlds bound in ice. I know what awaits you. Only the Elder Blood can stop the White Frost. Only I can stop it.
You know, it's a little contradictory to be Geralt in this position. Normally, in video games or epic stories, you primarily live through the main protagonist's point of view. You slowly come to terms with fate, the destiny of a hero who makes the ultimate sacrifice at the end for the greater good. It isn't often that you experience the hero from the outside. Ciri is the savior of the world, not Geralt.
There's gotta be another way.
What can you know about saving the world, silly? You're but a witcher. This is my story, not yours. You must let me finish telling it.
I had prepared for a different finale, one that wasn't so passive. I wanted Geralt to save Ciri, but in the end, he couldn't.
Don't do this to me. Please, not now.
I let Ciri walk into the tower knowing this is it. How could she survive after this? This frame hit home. We had just found Ciri, and now she's out of reach once again, this time for good. We have been able to play as Ciri from time to time, so it wasn't unusual that the next scene was from her point of view. As a final tribute to Geralt and Ciri's relationship, flashbacks arose of all the happy moments they had. It felt like Ciri surviving until the end was unlikely, but it was still hard to accept. This was officially the end of the story. I was glad that there was more to see and that the game did not end inexplicably. We were back in White Orchard several months later, with the land now being covered in snow. My initial thought was, she failed. The White Frost defeated Ciri, and it has decided to enact its beginning stages on our world. Geralt sat away from the table where Dandelion and Zoltan played Gwent, probably still trying to unfold all that happened since the tower. A quest popped up, and I ran away from the small town to go and meet up with a hunter. We get to live out one final moment before the closing of the game, to provide a soft closure. After everything that has happened, it's as if nothing has. My jaw dropped when the hunter we were meeting was Ciri. She survived? The tone of the conversation was off. Ciri was not her normal energetic self, and something was bothering her.
What now?
Nothing. Just sitting, waiting for you.
It felt like a dream. Are we dead? Is this some sort of vision or flashback? I really couldn't tell. For about 20 minutes, we completed a few menial tasks like taking down a forktail and scaring off a bear. It was nice to hang out with Ciri, but I knew something was brewing. What is going on? If this is all a dream, I'd actually be upset. All of the answers were waiting back in the village.
They're here for me, Geralt. I'm going to Nilfgaard, to Emir.
So Ciri lived. She beat the White Frost, and now she is off to serve as the new emperor of the Nilfgaards. This epilogue was bittersweet. Ciri and Geralt are together, but their time together is ending.
We needn't say goodbye.
Yeah, we do.
You could come with me.
No, Ciri. That's not me. You know that.
I know, but I thought...
You've made your decision, and I made mine long ago.
I had no expectations for what would happen in my playthrough of The Witcher 3. I quickly learned that the game was full of monsters, full of war and fighting. It would have been a cool game with just those two things. As time went on, the game started to evolve into something more. The characters, the stories, the environment, the music. It was so much more than I could have guessed. The search for Ciri revealed that Geralt is more than a witcher, more than a monster hunter. He's a father. I grew to love Ciri almost like she was my daughter. It really did make for a beautiful story. She walked away to join her rightful place with the Nilfgaards, and as so many other times throughout the story, Geralt stood as he watched his precious ashen-haired, green-eyed girl from a distance. She would disappear, out of his reach yet again, but this time, safe. has been a few days since I finished the game. I just couldn't continue playing right away, and I needed some time to unravel all that happened. When I did finally log back in, I was at Kaer Morhen. The beautiful, folky music cued, but it sounded different than normal. It was melancholy. It was empty. I was alone. I became so deeply attached to the story and the characters that it almost feels like I've lost something. What am I supposed to do? Unlike other video games, The Witcher doesn't have to end when the main story ends. I have barely found all of the question marks. I have so many side quests remaining. I have only ever tried the treasure map stuff for Witcher gear once. I can also play on a harder difficulty. I could do a contrarian playthrough where I do the opposite of my first, like helping Hjalmar instead of Cerys. I could try to play Gwent, and I still have the DLC to experience. I didn't know what to choose, so I decided on the Heart and Stone questline, and I have to say, this DLC was amazing. The storyline was just as immersive, and to say the boss fights took a step up in terms of difficulty would be an understatement. I am sure I could find 1,000 different things to say about this game, and this video could honestly go on for another few hours, but I think this is a good stopping point. I feel proud to join all of you in the I beat The Witcher 3 and only wish to erase my memory and do it all again club.